Hey guys, Kevin here for American Crime Season 2, Episode 2, and you guys know I was definitely very impressed by last week's premiere. It was much better than I thought it was going to be, and I was definitely very interested in seeing how this episode was going to be. Mainly because the fact, like I said, the last week's premiere really surprised me, and this episode I thought was just as great. Now, this episode was definitely different from last week's in the sense that last week we got introduced to all the characters, all the exposition is not necessarily out of the way, but now that we know more about the characters, a lot of this episode was more like information and trying to get information out of people. But the biggest thing about this episode, that I really love, that I really feel is going to be a big theme of this season, is do parents really know their children? That's one of the things that this show is trying to do. That's one of the things that I think they're accomplishing very well. And that is basically, I think, going to be the question this entire season is do all of these parents, meaning Anne, Teri, and then Eric's parents, who we find out more about his character in this episode, do they really know their children? And you really do start to see that here, which I think is perfectly shown in the first scene of this episode. But let's just get into it. And as we know, last week the episode ended with and despite Leslie telling her not to, she did call 911, and right away, there are two police officers that show up. They're a male and a female, and they show up in Anne's apartment. They want all the information pretty much. They just want to know things like, how the rape occurred, the identity of the victim. And when they realize that Taylor is a boy, they're not necessarily ridiculed by it, but they're a bit surprised because I think one of the big things the show is trying to show is that this can happen to a boy. It's as it happens as much as it does to a girl. It's just most times when we think about rape, we don't really think of it the other way. We always think of it as the girl being raped by a bunch of guys rather than a guy being raped by a bunch of guys. And very much that's what seems like happened here. And Anne reveals that the victim's her son. The male officer does a double take. They want to know pretty much all the questions. They want Taylor to be there. But Anne's telling them that, she can't tell them anything. She can't provide the name of the assassin or the assassins because Taylor can't recall anything and he doesn't really want to talk about it. He's just locking himself in his room. He doesn't really want to do anything about it. And they basically tell Anne that she needs to take Taylor to the hospital to get a rape kit done. And the female officer wants to speak to Taylor since he's a victim, but Anne says that her son refuses. The officer responds, if Taylor isn't going to help them, that they can help him. Which, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they can't just ask Anne because Anne wasn't actually there. Anne can just tell what she knows, and that's something I definitely really love about Anne as a character. Anne thinks that she can do all these things when really her son has to give consent, and that's the one thing that he's not doing. We haven't really seen Taylor's side of does he feel comfortable? Is there something he's hiding? And me personally, I really do feel there's something that Taylor is hiding. There's just something he doesn't want to tell anyone because he's shocked by it, and it's definitely a lot more than what we think. And I'm going to say it again, I very much feel like he could very well be the perpetrator of this. Like maybe he was instigating it or something like that. I'm not really sure, but then we get to a very interesting conflict with the Leland School. We see that they have big expansion plans to work, and at a city council meeting, many residents are saying that they're tired of the preferential treatment that the private school receives. That they have all this great treatment and they treat these kids like they're gods or whatever. And many view the school as elitist and I like just seeing their opinion here. When we think of private schools, we don't really think of them in a good way. We think of them in a very negative way. We think of kids as stuck up. We think of them as rich and snooty, and that's exactly what they think of. And something I love about that is that that's the school that Taylor goes to, and he's the only one there that's not rich. So it definitely is very interesting, and really I think makes us think about private schools in a big way. But then of course you have Leslie Graham, who is shaping up, I think, to be the antagonist of this season, definitely. However, while they're writing her that way, I can really get behind her. Like I do understand Leslie points here. Basically, after the meeting, Leslie, they have a board meeting of their own. Several members refer to their opponents as idiots, and Leslie also takes a hit as one member in particular, who is Reese Basher. And he criticizes her for not speaking on behalf of the school, but Leslie says that she's not interested in antagonizing people just for voicing their opinions at a public forum. She wants to focus her attention on an upcoming fundraiser, which baffles Basher, who admonishes her for what he believes to be her curious priorities. And Leslie makes it clear that the upcoming event will raise $3 million for Leland, and yes, that's her priority. And it seems like Leslie's main concern is the school. The school is pretty much her rock. It's what she cares about the most. She's wanting to do whatever she can to let the school stand, and I like that Leslie, though, does want to address what happened. She makes them aware of something that may or not be an issue, but should be of concern. She doesn't provide specifics, but lets them know that it does involve members of the basketball team and that the matter is being handled diligently. They don't really know what to do about it. She will keep them informed as the situation develops, and this appears to satisfy everyone but Basher. Basher does not seem happy about this at all, and she stresses that Leland has to say and do the right thing when it comes to these allegations because even though the events in question happened off grounds and weren't sanctioned by the school, there's still a liability issue and things could definitely get very ugly. And she keeps saying that, and yeah, it's true. I think Leslie just doesn't want her school to have a bad reputation. Knowing that they already have this reputation, they're viewed as snotty. She doesn't want to view them that way. She wants their kids to be viewed in a positive manner, and I don't think Leslie really wants to portray the school in a negative way because they already are bashed for being a private school. So I think it definitely is very interesting. And Leslie tells Basher that there is a fact procedure and a rumor procedure, and right now they're dealing with rumors, which is definitely true. I mean, they don't know if what Anne is claiming is true or not, so they have to be very careful what they're doing. And it's important for everyone with ties to Leland not to promote the rumor, but instead provide proof to support promotion of the opposite. And you basically see that she really just doesn't want to do something too fast. She doesn't, she wants to know the facts. She doesn't just want stories. She wants facts. And the one person that they need information from, they're not getting. So she really doesn't know what to do here. And I like seeing that. That's something that definitely they're handling very well. So then we get a truly devastating scene. I mean, this scene was extremely hard to watch, but it's something that needed to happen. We see that Anne is convincing Taylor to get checked out. He wants this all to go away, but Anne points out that it isn't going to happen. She also makes a promise to him that everything will get better, an outcome that she can't possibly predict, with any certainty. She doesn't know if this is true, but she's clearly just trying to motivate him. She's trying to tell him, look, it's all going to be okay. If you just go with this, it's going to be fine. But I don't think Anne is certain that that's true. You can definitely tell that she is not necessarily sure if that is true, if Taylor is going to be okay, because in many ways, I don't think he's going to be. I think he was very much affected by what happened, and he just doesn't want to tell her. So we see this nurse, but we don't actually see the nurse. This was a very interesting scene. We see, while Taylor's getting checked out, we actually never see the nurse's face. It focuses on Taylor the whole time, and I think makes the scene a lot more personal. It just shows that this is very hard for Taylor. It doesn't matter who this doctor is. The nurse is very coldly just trying to tell him what's going to happen, exactly what will happen during the examination, and she's not really making a big deal of it because this is what she does every day. This is her profession. It doesn't really matter to her. That's why we're not seeing the nurse, because it doesn't matter who she is or where she's from. This is just her profession. And the part that fills Teri with the most dread is not the blood draw or the possibility of STDs, it's that he'll need to talk and try to recall the events of the night, which obviously he doesn't want to do. So the nurse explains that it helps her guide the exam, and it will be relevant if the case goes to trial. And Taylor's exposed not only physically, because, he has to get checked out and everything. She even asks for him to, check his genitals, things like that. And he lies on the table, tears are streaming down his face, and the pictures taken of him at the party flash through his mind as if he's being victimized all over again. And the viewers aren't hearing his account of the night's events. So if there's more of the story than what he's told his mother, we still don't know. And I like that we don't really know if Taylor's, telling the truth or not, if there's more going on. There's clearly something he's haunted by, and I don't think it's just rape. I think it's much more than that. I think the reason he doesn't want to talk about it is because maybe he just did something, he doesn't want to admit that he did it. So the nurse also pulls Anne aside and reinforces how important it is to make sure Taylor follows up with HIV testing. And beyond the emotional fallout, Anne hasn't thought about the long-term physical ramifications of what Taylor's been through, and Anne is told to try and locate the outfit that Taylor was wearing that night, and if it hasn't been washed, bag it and take it to the police. So Anne would prefer to bring the items to the nurse, but the woman explains any evidence has to be handled by the detective investigating the case. So Anne questions how many people she'll have to talk to, and basically you get the idea that she really has no idea how this all happened. She's trying to get an idea what happened, but she of course doesn't really know exactly what happened, so she can't really do much of anything here, which really sucks on Anne's behalf because she really just wants to help her son, and it's really sad, I have to say, to watch her wanting to get this information while not really knowing what's going on. So then we see this really interesting thing with Teri going on. We don't get as much with Teri and Kevin this week, but what we get with them is just as important as what we got last week. And I definitely really love this. Of course, Regina King is just such a great actress that you give her anything, it's going to be great. Basically, Teri has a collision with this driver who clearly is, drunk or whatever. And the man pulls over, and as Teri drives by, he begins to yell, pounding her passenger side window, calls her a dumb bitch. And Teri pulls out her phone, takes photos of the encounter. And once she's in her office, she immediately calls that police officer on the force, Detective Williams. And she explains that she got into an incident with another driver, and the man was aggressive. And Williams asks if the man was white or black, and Teri responds, white. And we know that Teri has racial issues. We know she does because we saw that she had that way of viewing her son wanting to be with black over white. So is she afraid of someone that's not her own race? To me, it kind of seems that way. I kind of feel like Teri is not comfortable with white people. She's fine with black people, but she's not comfortable with white people because they're very different and she doesn't really know how to deal with them. And that I find definitely very interesting as to what's going on there, because definitely there's something going on there. What it is, I don't know, but Teri is clearly not okay with the idea of white people. She wants, kind of just black people and nothing else. And Teri got a photo of the man's license plate, and she wants to know the detective can do anything about it. And this woman must have, some pull or inspire fear because the cop says something will be done. And Teri is very pleased to know that the matter will be taken care of. And she wants to know really what's going on here. But the thing that surprises me is that this friend who is the police is white. Maybe the reason that she's not comfortable is because the fact that he's white and she is kind of racist in that way where she doesn't like white people. And if that's where we're going with that, definitely I find to be very interesting as to what's going on there. So we get a few brief scenes here that provide some insight into the characters of Eric and Dan. Eric's parents are divorced, we learn, and I like that we found out more about Eric because Eric was the one character that I found to be quite underdeveloped last week. Not the case here. We find a lot of information about Eric in this episode. We see that he's playing basketball with his dad, who comments that his son might want to take a bit more interest in his personal hygiene, perhaps shower, throw on some deodorant, and use a body spray. And Eric comments that he has no interest in smelling like that. So in addition to not only the locker room remarks, Eric is, you can tell, homophobic. He doesn't want to, come across as gay. He's very misogynistic, and definitely, though I don't think that's all that's going on with Eric. We'll definitely get into later what I think is really going on. So Dan retreats to his basement where it's revealed that his hobby is putting those boats into glass bottles, and he puts ships into bottles, and the patience and the eye for detail for this endeavor is key. And he seemed to be more, interested in that than what's actually going on with his team. This seems to be the one thing that Dan wants to avoid. He doesn't really want to do anything about it, and he presents one of his creations to Leslie as a thank you for all the kind words she said about him at the recent school fundraiser. And while she appreciates the gift, she obviously she knows what she wants to talk about. She wants to talk about, of course, this rape and what could have happened. And Leslie informs Dan that he has to discipline one of his team members for the captain's party incident, something she told and she done already, which she did not do. Which I like that we found out that he actually didn't do anything because he just didn't have the heart to do it. And basically, Dan says that his boys did nothing wrong because they told him so. And he's very naive in this way. He has this bond with them that he thinks is true. He doesn't really feel like his players would, wrong him or anything. In Dan's eyes, these players are looked at as just simply, his family. But he has to think, even family members betray you. Not everyone tells the truth. And Dan is kind of just looking this in if they said it's true, which it might not necessarily be. And that's kind of what Leslie's trying to get him at. And Leslie argues that something went down. There was obviously drinking, and pictures creating this throughout the school prove that there's something accountable to be held. And Dan wants Leslie to discipline the kids circulating the pics, but not to take it out on the team. And Leslie explains that Anne used the word rape to describe what happened to her son. And Dan thinks that that's insane. He knows that it's probably not rape, and Leslie says that they have to look thoughtful and responsible in comparison. And people already view the school, as this breeding ground for entitlement in this place that's like very stuck up and very, have very specific ways of doing things. And she doesn't want to, have the school, she's mostly concerned about promotion for the school. That's really what she's concerned about here. But I do think that she definitely has points. She wants this school to be viewed in a good way. And Dan fights the good fight, but Leslie's mind is made up. One player benched for one game, and the question is who? We don't know who it is, because there are actually two team captains, Eric and Kevin, and he doesn't really know which one to bench. And Leslie marks an off-the-cuff remark that she doesn't want to tangle with Teri because probably just the way Teri views things, so Eric should be the one that's disciplined. And Eric is punished because his mother isn't as diligent. Some might even argue, as a militant. She doesn't seem to care as much. And it's obvious that Leslie doesn't want to deal with the possibility of accusations of racism on top of rape, because that's clearly something else that's going on here. Because if Teri finds out that her son could be accused, she could use that as, oh, Anne's racist. She could definitely use it that way. Just the way that Teri is, it seems it's very interesting in the way that they're doing this. So Dan delivers the news to Eric, who questions why he's being singled out, and Dan offers up a vague excuse about each player being dealt with individually, and Eric storms out, and Kevin finds his friend outside. Eric suspects that his suspension has to do with Taylor running his mouth, but Kevin wants Eric to chill out and let it go. He promises that he's got Eric's back and that nobody will speak of it again, and something tells me, you can tell that Kevin won't have anyone's back once Teri gets wind of what's going on. You can definitely tell, because once Teri gets involved, everyone's going to get involved, and it's going to end up really badly once Teri gets involved. So we then switch a very big, and I like seeing this. Definitely, this was very interesting because, so far we've kind of seen this in this private school. We focused here. Now we need to focus more on this public school here. We see the public schools in the system, and the entire school district is basically minority kids from low income families, the complete opposite of what this private school is. And it was a very insightful way of just showing the difference between these two schools and the different reputations that they have. We see a group of administrators from several schools meet. There's a heated debate about meat programs. There's this Hispanic woman declaring a civil rights issue. And then we meet this character of Chris Dixon, who is played by Elvis Nolasco, who I heard was the best actor on the show last year. So I'm definitely interested in seeing what they're going to do with him this season. Um, He's the principal of the school, happens to be black, and he scoffs at the comparison. She accused him of being insensitive to the needs of students with brown skin. And after an unproductive meeting, the school superintendent has a few words with Chris, and she wants to be the proponent for some real change and calls on Chris for his support. And Chris didn't see the point in stirring the pot. Too many teachers are apathetic, and it's all about the unions and legislators. But whether Chris wants to or not, the superintendent basically unwillingly drafts him into a battle he doesn't think they can win. So the big question is, what's really going on here? I mean, there clearly is a battle going on between this school and Leland, and I like that it's very subtle, but you can definitely tell that it's going to get a lot more crazy, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens there. So then we get this really great scene between Kevin and Teri. I really like this, just showing how dominant Teri is and how she kind of is the law enforcer in Kevin's life. I mean, basically, he arrives home and Teri wants to know, she finds this very expensive bracelet that he's getting for Val, and she wants to know what Val's angle is here because she views Val as not a nice girl. She views Val as just simply wanting money or trying to be a slut, and the whole conversation comes up if they're having sex or whatever. And Teri's convinced the only way Kevin can be sure that a girl's good intentions is if her family's got money. Now, I really do understand what Terry's trying to say here. Sometimes if a girl's very rich, they'll try, sometimes if a girl doesn't have money, they'll try to find ways to get money. Obviously, maybe she's trying to buy money off of Kevin. And Terry says that Kevin needs to get the bracelet back, and he tries to argue, but Terry says if Kevin doesn't, she'll go over to Val's with the police, because as far as she's concerned, Val stole it. So Kevin does retrieve the bracelet, but it's obvious that things are probably over with Val, mainly because of Terry. And the fact that we see that Teri pretty much has control in every situation in Kevin's life is very interesting. Kevin doesn't get to have an opinion in Teri's eyes. Despite how Kevin feels, he needs to agree with Teri because that's just how she sees things. She doesn't really want him to have an opinion. And definitely when this whole situation comes up and when she finds out what's going on, it's going to be very interesting to see how this happens because I really feel like Kevin eventually is not going to be able to listen to Teri. He's going to have to do his own thing and not listen to his mother constantly because that kind of seems like what he does. That she is the one that makes all the rules and she's the one that finalizes everything, and he can't really live that way. So we see after this infuriating meeting with a potential donor, we see that Leslie vents to her husband, a developer. He's sure in sympathy and doesn't understand or respect Leslie's commitment to her job, and we see that Leslie's not an educator, she's a bureaucrat, and Leslie's commitment to Leland is also questionable. Once his expansion is underway, her legacy will have been built and she'll be ready to move on. She's oddly equal parts ambivalent about the students themselves and offensive when they are clumped together and criticized by outsiders. So I like seeing that her husband is trying to tell her, the school is not all that matters. She actually seems not really distant from him, but it seems like all she cares about the most is the school. Like if I feel like if she had to choose between the school and her husband, she'd choose the school in a heartbeat. And definitely this could get very interesting as to what's going on there. And I'm definitely interested in seeing what Leslie's real angle is here. Does she actually care about the school or does she simply just want money? That's something that we don't really know yet, and I like that. So We see that Anne tries to go to see this therapist, psychiatrist, and try to ease Anne's anxiety because she is going crazy at this point. She wants answers and she's not getting it. And they're saying that maybe Taylor isn't just ready to talk yet. And he urges her to consider that her crusade is having a positive effect on her son, but Anne doesn't really want to think that there's more to the situation. She wants to think that she knows of the facts and that no one is really doing anything. And that's something I like about Anne is again, she thinks like Teri in not as much like Teri, but in many ways Anne's trying to take control and it's not really happening and you don't really know if it's working. With Kevin it works in the sense that Teri controls every action her son does, but with Anne, not as much because she knows pretty much nothing except just kind of what she thinks happened. So then we get this really interesting scene with Eric. And if what I think is going on with Eric, is then this could be a lot more interesting. We see Eric meets up with this guy. He's definitely older, and right away they're making out, and things are getting very physical. But Eric pulls the guy away and tells him that he just wants to kiss. And it's clear that I think Eric is struggling with sexual identity. He doesn't feel this is right. He's having all these feelings, but he doesn't feel like it's right. He feels like this isn't a good thing to do. Probably, especially in a public school, there's, in a public school, there's a lot more, you can be a lot more open to things, but in a private school, you're kind of confounded to be a certain type of criteria that they want. And I feel like what Eric does, is against that criteria and he doesn't want to do that. So I feel like Eric, in many ways, is scared and is coming across as homophobic because he just feels this is wrong. He's been raised that way. Again, we don't know too much about Eric's parents, which I like, and what his life has been like. But this definitely makes me very interested in his character, and definitely I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with that because that definitely is very interesting. So let me get to the final scene here. Anne meets with a detective on the case who informs that the school has already been in contact with the department and has provided a summary of the events and pictures. And once again, we don't see the detective's face. We actually never see a detective's face. And I like that because it's more like, again, the detective, this is their job. They know what they're doing. And once again, Anne finds herself defending Taylor's actions, claiming he wasn't drunk but drugged. And the detective questions why someone would drug Taylor. What do they have against him? Why would they do this? And when Anne replies that kids don't like him, the cop says that he thinks it's a lot of effort to go through because you don't like someone. And I like what the cop is trying to say, that kids will be kids and that she wants to charge kids as rape. And she's saying that this is a crime. Anne sees this as a crime. She sees this as her son was taken advantage of when they don't really know if that's what's going on. And basically, because she's not getting anywhere, she decides to seek out one last ally, the press. She meets with this local reporter, explains what's been going on. She thinks people don't believe these types of things happen to boys, even though she's done her share of research and discovered this type of sexual abuse is far more common than people think. And she's tired of begging people to care about her son, and the female reporter agrees to look into it and asks the woman to promise her one thing, that Taylor's name won't be printed in the paper. And the woman agrees, but warns Anne that once the article comes out, people will figure out, and she questions Anne if she really wants to go public. And before Anne can even say anything, she just says yes. She definitely is going to regret it, and that's how the episode ends. So overall, guys, a very strong episode. Something I really love the show is doing is that we're really getting everyone's opinion here. Back with Dan, by the way, and the thing going on with what's her name? I can't remember her name right now. His daughter, of course. I find it very interesting the way we're looking at that. We see that he really doesn't want to talk to her about sex, and that she's kind of learned everything in the wrong ways. Like she's learned things from porn, and in many ways, Dan can't control his daughter. He knows that, and I feel like that's something that Dan is not happy about. That the fact that his daughter, he can't control her, and that's a big thing of what the season seems to be about. It's all about parents wanting to control their kids. Teri controls Kevin in the sense that she is completely dominant. He doesn't get to make a decision. What she says goes. Eric really doesn't know what to do with his parents because he just doesn't think what he's doing is right. So at the same time, his parents have no idea what's going on with him. Dan's trying to control, his daughter, but she's gone in the wrong place. And then Anne clearly doesn't know what the hell's going on with Taylor. So very interesting stuff going on here. Let's talk about Taylor overall. What is he hiding? He clearly is hiding something. There's something he does not want to tell. He does not want to tell Anne about. And like I said, I really feel it's just something he did that he's not proud of and he doesn't want Anne to know. So that definitely very much interests me in what's going on there. Teri and Kevin, what is Kevin going to do about Val? What is his real opinion about this whole situation with Val? Because Teri isn't really given an opinion. And how is Teri going to react when she finds out what Kevin could be accused of? Because it looks like next week she is going to find out. She's immediately going to try to take advantage, and we don't know if Kevin's really going to get a say. I don't think he's going to because his mom seems to have the dominance over him, and it seems like he really doesn't get to have a say in these kind of things. Eric clearly is struggling with sexual identity. We'll have to see what's going on there. Does he think he's gay? Does he think this is wrong? To me, it seems like he thinks this is wrong. Leslie, does Leslie care about her husband, or is she just doing, does she care about the students, or is she just doing this for money? What is her real passion here? Does she care about the school? Does she care about the students? What is she really trying to get at? That's something that I'm definitely very interested in seeing what they're trying to do here with this episode as to what's going on. Um, Definitely am interested in seeing what they're doing with that. But overall, guys, I'm really enjoying the show. We also did see the scene between Evie and Taylor, which was especially strong. I really love the scene where basically Taylor's talking to Evie, basically telling her that, Evie's saying, I'm supposed to be your girlfriend, you're supposed to tell me things, but he doesn't even want to tell her what's going on. So clearly something's going on there. There's a big battle between the public school and the private school. And what is the difference between these two schools? What is the public school viewed as? What is the private school viewed as? Definitely something I'm interested in seeing. I definitely feel there's going to be a war brewing between these two schools, especially knowing that Evie goes to the other school. Definitely, I feel like there's going to be something going on there. But overall, guys, I'm really enjoying this season. Definitely, I'm really getting into it. I think this is becoming a really interesting show. There are a lot of interesting things that are going on in the show that I'm definitely loving. Also, how does Teri view white kids? Because to me, it seems like she is afraid, or they don't fit her criteria, and that she just simply, it doesn't go with how she views things. And definitely that very much interests me as well, is how does Teri view what's going on. Definitely I'm interested in seeing what's going on there. And then Dan's control, of course, with his daughter. What is going to happen there? Is he going to be able to control what's going on? Because to me, it seems like he doesn't care about what's going on with his players, that he wants to believe his players didn't do anything, but he really needs to do something. He needs to think, okay, did my players really do that? And he doesn't seem like he really wants to do anything about it. So I'm interested in seeing if he's going to try to do something there. He needs to do something, and we'll see what he does. But overall, guys, let me know what you guys are thinking of this show. I'm loving this season. I cannot wait for next week's episode. I mean, this show, probably out of all the shows I'm watching, is my favorite show I'm watching so far, at least on TV. I think it's definitely going to be, I had 5 shows that I really love that I was watching, like Leftovers, Fargo, You're the Worst, things like that. I feel like this show is definitely going to be up one of those 5 shows that I'm really going to love in this season of TV, of course. But let me know what you guys saw this episode. I definitely really loved it, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for the series premiere of Teachers, the new show on TV Land, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.